Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the budget 8th gen Civic Si track build. We are going to take two of these hoopty SIs and make them into one sort of less hoopty SI. The goal isn't to make some record-breaking, super fast race car. I just want to make a really fun seat time car, something that's reliable, something you can just get in and enjoy, something you can drive a couple hours to the racetrack, race it all day, drive a couple hours home, have the air conditioning on, be comfortable. And I just want to be into it for not much money. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I autocross a lot, but I don't really go to track days that often. That being said, I do like to do a track day once a year, maybe twice a year, depending how things are going. Our local autocross has lost all its experienced course designers, so I don't know how much autocross I'm going to be doing locally in the future, which is what's leading me down this path. Maybe I will be doing more track days in the future. The thought behind it, I just want something cheap, fun, reliable. I have the EK hatch, obviously, which is very well set up for track, but I don't need a track car that's like 10 to 15 grand. I just don't, not for the amount I do it. It just sucks to have it sitting there all the time being worth that much. I'm into both of these cars together. I'm into these for like $3,500. I own both of these cars, Canadian, so whatever that is US, it's not very much. My plan is to basically, well, let me start by saying, if you're not familiar with my previous videos, the red car is a clean title car, but it was mechanically not great. It had a blown transmission, steering rack's no good, host of other issues. This car is salvage title, needs a ton of body work, but it runs and drives really good. So the goal is to sell all the parts from the red car to basically pay for the shell. So I'm into that car for $2,200. I think I'll be able to sell the motor, the blown transmission, the interior parts, a few other miscellaneous pieces. It has like camber arms and it had a rear urethane lip, things like that. I should be able to get my money back so that the red car is free, which means I'd be into the project for just the cost of this car, which is around $1,300. So I will take all the drivetrain from the orange car, stuff it in the red car, and then whatever parts I can sell off the orange car, that's even paying down the price more. So at the end of the day, it should be a running, driving SI for sub 2 grand Canadian, we'll say. I don't know what it'll work out to. I'll be transparent with everybody on that as the project moves along. With that, I'm not going to leave the car stock. I have a few things sitting on the bench here, which I'll show you in a second, that I've just had laying around. If you're familiar with my old 8th gen SI, my 4-door Rally Red SI, there I did a video on it, removing all my legal mods to turn it back into an autocross car. So everything I have from that car, which isn't much, but the parts I have from that car, I still have. So I'm going to put that into this coupe to try and make it handle a little better. Yeah, I think with that, let's have a look at what I got here. Okay, so here is the collection of stuff that I've just been storing for the last year. We got some Skunk 2 rear camber arms. They're actually pretty nice. They've only got maybe a season of daily driving and one track day on them. So this car actually does have a set of aftermarket rear camber arms. I think they're SPC. I'll probably end up selling those. I don't need them for any other projects, and yeah, I'll probably end up selling those. That'll help recoup some costs on the car. And I've got these ones laying around, which are in nice shape, and I know they're a decent arm. I've also got a lower rear motor mount. I don't remember the exact durometer. I want to say it's is it like Street Race Extreme, I think, are the 3 settings. I want to say that's a race. It's extremely brutal, I will say that. Like, it vibes like crazy. When you turn the car over, it sounds like the starter's gonna fly through the floor. But it's gonna mostly be a track car. I don't have to worry about it that much. Also got some Tane lowering springs. I think they're S-Tech. They were on my ride car for about a year. I daily drove them. Also did one track day on them. They're pretty soft. They're not what I would call an ideal setup for the track, but they'll be a little better than stock. And yeah, they're what I have, so that's what I'm going to use. Budget is the whole point of this build. So, and then for wheels, I have these Koenig 17x8 plus 45s. I don't even remember what they're called. Jackie, shh. Oh, okay, you're gonna come up here. They're not super light or anything, but they're wide, so I'll be able to put a decent sized tire on them. I'm hoping to do a staggered setup. I'll probably run like a 245 up front, and I might even run like the stock 17x7s in the back, or I'll take the RPF ones from my autocross car when I do a track day. I'll just put rears on, which are 17x7 as well, and they're nice and light. And then I'll just have like a 225 or a 215 out back, and a 245, 255 in the front. That should help give the car a decent balance. As far as sway bar goes, I do have an option for that. Let me grab that and we'll have a look at it. So this is a 9th gen 2014, 2015 SI coupe rear bar. So it's a 20 millimeter, I believe. Whereas the factory 8th gen SI is like 15 mil, I think. It's pretty small. So this would be a reasonable upgrade, and I already have it. It's cheap, it fits the budget, which is nice, which makes me want to use it. But at the same time, I've driven that bar before at the racetrack and autocross, and I think I would want a little more bar for it. Being that I'm running the soft spring rate, it would be nice to add a little bit of roll stiffness with sway bars. So the coupe does have a big front sway bar compared to the sedan, but that's a maybe. I'm considering, depending how budget's going, buying a Progress rear sway bar for the car, but we're gonna leave that open for the moment. But that is one of our options. And here, I also want to show you, I have just some cheap, they're SPC or Ingalls or something, camber bolts. So those, they don't net you a lot. I think when they were on my FA5, I got like 2.5 degrees in the front, which isn't a ton, but better than nothing. So those are cheap and I have them. We'll run those on the front of the car, try and get as much camber as we can out of it. The rear, I'm not gonna run a ton of camber in, depending on wheel fitment. The car's kind of a hoopty, so I don't mind if I have to roll fenders or clearance things. That's not a big deal. The other thing I do have for this car that I can't show you really at the moment is brakes. The two tracks most local to me, one of them is quite braking intensive. The other isn't too bad, but still the stock brakes aren't really gonna cut it on the SI. So there are some budget options for that. The most common being the TSX brake upgrade, which is a little thicker rotor, larger caliper, and larger pad surface. So I do have a TSX brake setup. It's currently on my FA5, which is technically illegal for H Street, which is the class I autocrossed it in anyways. So I could do a brake swap from one of these two cars, put the stock brakes back on the four-door, take the TSX brakes from the four-door and put them on the coupe. That would be a win-win actually, because then obviously the track car would have the bigger brakes, and the autocross car actually going back to stock brakes would be an improvement because they are lighter, unsprung weight, so it would be probably an improvement in acceleration for the autocross car. And being an autocross car, you don't need crazy brakes anyways, so there's that option. The second option, well, there's several options. You can do the TLS brake upgrade, but that's not that budget friendly because by the time you source calipers, you buy the extended studs, you do wheel bearings, you get the spacers, it's really not that cheap of a setup, plus brake master cylinder. So I think I'm going to avoid that one. The other one is the Genesis Brembo setup. If you can find the calipers affordably, that's actually a decent setup because you don't have to buy any spacers or extended studs or any of that. Wheel fitment, I think, can be a little tricky, but that setup is unlikely that I'll do either because it's not easy to find those calipers cheap unless you get lucky. The fourth option is something I haven't seen anybody do, and I'm considering trying to be the guinea pig on it to see if it's viable or not, but that kind of takes money out of the budget for other things, so I'm unsure on that one. For now, I'll probably just run the TSX upgrade because I have it and that is budget friendly. But the one I am considering is 10th Gen SI front brakes. They are actually rather large. I would have to look it up, but offhandedly, I want to say the rotors are 330 maybe, and they're quite thick as well. And the caliper and pad surface area is a lot larger than the TSX. So if I went that route, I think that would give me a ton of thermal mass for heat dissipation, which would be good. I'm thinking if I do that route, I would probably have to do the brake master cylinder upgrade. Just an assumption. Again, no, I don't think anyone's done that swap, so I'd have to kind of see what it would need. But I think that about does it for parts we're going to add to the car. One thing I do want to mention though in the budget is I plan to include all the parts I sell from either of these cars will go to paying down the budget, and any parts I purchase outside of here for the car obviously will be added to the budget. The parts I have, I'm not going to add to the budget, but I will keep that in like a separate column. If you were to buy the same parts, you'd have an idea of what you're spending. But I'm not actually spending that because I've had these laying around for a couple of years. I mean, I did spend it, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to add the price of the tires to the total budget of the car because, hi Jackie, I want to see what we can build a seat time track capable car for. Tires are totally consumable, so I'm not going to add them into the budget. I will let you know what I spend on them, but yeah, I think that's all I need to say there. The other thing is I do have is it InGen short ram intake for an 8th Gen SI. I don't know if I'll use that. I might just stick stock airbox, stock exhaust. That way I don't have to tune the car. I don't have to worry about it being unreliable. The only reason I was thinking of going to the short ram... Oh my god, Jackie, are you insane? Oh my god, Jackie, are you insane? Holy, she just jumped right off the ground. She's never done that before. Wow, lost my train of thought. Short ram intake. I was thinking of installing that just for sound, because this is going to be like my seat time fun car. It would be cool to make it sound nice, but at the same time, I don't want to be beating on it with air fuel ratios not being correct and hurt it or something, so I'm undecided about that. But anyways, I think I've jibber-jabbered enough about the parts. The only thing I haven't mentioned that I plan to do to the car is weight reduction. I do plan to lose weight in some areas, but I don't want to skimp on other things. Like, for instance, I plan to delete the sunroof. The airbag system is no good in this car anyways, so I plan to delete all the airbags because a lot of that is weight up high in the curtains and whatnot. Seating, I plan to put a bucket seat in the car. I already have a Bloody Club low-down seat mount bracket, so I'll be using that. I just need to try and source a budget seat, and that'll help lose some weight. I don't intend on daily driving this or anything, so I'm going to take all the back seats out, trunk lining, spare tire, all that stuff that's rear seat belts, that's just free weight, all that'll go. But I am going to keep full front interior. I want carpet. I want a stereo. I am going to remove probably the subwoofer and the rear speakers because that's weight that's up high. I don't really need it. If I could just keep 2 front door speakers so I can have music when I'm highway driving it, I'll be happy. I am 100% keeping air conditioning. That is a big reason I don't want to track the EK is I'm getting old and I like air conditioning. So AC is 100% staying. It's not worth sacrificing the weight for that. I think that's about it really that I'm going to do for weight reduction. Basically, my plan was sunroof, airbags, rear interior strip, things like that. We'll see what we can get it down to without turning it into a tin can. I still want it to be, I don't expect it to be like Cadillac spec, but I would like it to be decent to drive to the highway. I don't want my ears to be ringing. I don't want to be dying of heat when it's 40 degrees out, etc. So anyways, I think that concludes the overview of the project. Hope you guys are excited for it. I'm pretty excited for it. It's fun to do stuff on a budget. So there's nothing left to do now but get to work on it. We got to start pulling the engine and steering rack out of this orange car so it can go in the red car. All right, we got updates. So I've got basically the whole driver's side top area torn down. I've got a little bit to do on the passenger side, and then it'll mostly be hopping under the car. But coolant strain, shift cables off, battery box, bracketry, clutch stuff is all out of the way, wiring harness. But I discovered this. The clutch fork has a lot of movement side to side, all over the place, quite a bit. Now there was no issue when driving the car, shifting the car, everything was fine, but I might separate the trans and the motor once they're out and look into that. Being that I want this to be a seat time car, I don't want to spend a bunch of time working on this car. I want to fix it all now so that I can just drive it later. So if I do separate that to have a look, I might end up throwing a clutch in it too, just as preventative, and then I don't have to really worry about it for future stuff. But there's been a few funny things like bolts missing here and there and brackets not attached, so it makes me think the transmission's been out of this car before. So potentially it's had a clutch in its life, or the other potential is being that it's a 06. It could have been an early recall car with the transmission issue, and it may have been taken to Honda for the recall and had it fixed. I don't know that for sure, either or, maybe both. Considering buying a Carfax for it to see if I can get any information about that, just for my own knowledge, but we'll we'll see. After I separate the tranny from the motor and look at what clutch is in it, then maybe I'll decide on that. But yeah, anyways, we're getting closer. I am pulling the motor out the top, which means I will have to remove the AC condenser and usually the alternator. But being that this is so hokey pokey and I'm not fixing this car anyways, I might just zip, get that out of my way, and then I don't really have to worry about taking the alternator off. Might still have to pull the AC condenser anyway, so I'm not really saving myself any time. But had to crawl under it, looked at the exhaust bolts. There's no way those are coming off, so I'll have to cut those off. Axles and everything should come out no problem. Yeah. It's New Year's Day while I'm filming this. Or not New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. So we're going to go hang out with some friends for the evening, but I'll get back with you guys when I start working on it again. Okay, it's the next day. We're working on pulling the engine out of the orange SI still. We made some pretty good progress. Air conditioning is out, alternator is out. The broken upper mount is out. Front mount's gone. Everything involved there, which I already showed you guys, is out. So basically, I'm procrastinating the next part because there's a lot of melted snow and water under the car. But I gotta get under there, unhook the exhaust, pop out both axles, and the rear motor mount. And then this thing is ready to be plucked. But since I'm procrastinating, let's have a look at more of that hokey damage with all the air conditioning stuff out of the way. You can see it really well now. So have a look at the gap that's supposed to be welded to the frame rail. It's not. You can just see all the holes of it broken off the old car. They just cut this straight across and butt welded it in, which on the bottom you can see this big gnarly gap. Bunch of boogery welds here. So within here along the frame rail, just stellar stuff. Alternator plug they never fixed, that's all mangulated. Somehow it's still unplugged and functioned, but the alternator plug on here is a little loosey-goosey. But yeah, if you do work like that on cars, just do us all a favor and stop working on cars. To make my life easier, I might take a sawzall and just zwing, and then it'll make it easier to pull out this side. I won't have to finagle it so much. But anywho, I need to get to work. I just don't want to because there's like 16 gallons of water under the car. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Grab the 32. 36. It's good and seized in there. That one's not bad, but I'm gonna have to work on that other one a little bit. Also might get the oil draining out of the trans right now so that when we go to pop the axles, we're not dumping oil on the floor. Doesn't smell like Honda MTF, but it's clean, so that's good. Alright, I let that bake on there like that for a few minutes, and then I gave her a couple taps with the sledgehammer. Not too hard because I didn't want to mushroom it, and it's busted loose, so axle's ready to come out. Oil's almost done draining. have to pop the 2 strut bolts off on each side, and then we'll be able to fish the axles out of there. So let's get to it. Okay, axles are out, motor mount is out, exhaust is unhooked. The exhaust was a bit of a fight. I had to cut these off, and all the sawzall blades I had were basically done for, so I weakened them as much as I could with the sawzall, and then I just twisted them off with a ratchet, and they snapped. Motor mount came out no problem. Axles were a little tough getting out of the hub, as you guys would have seen, but strange because they're very heavily greased, so someone has definitely been there before. So I don't know why they were so reluctant, but they came out anyways. I assume the clutch was probably done on this car in the last few years, and that's probably the evidence I'm seeing there. But anyways, the engine hoist is set up. I just got to grab some straps. And last but not least, I have to unhook the 2 heater hoses, one there and one there. I leave those for last because if I'm working under the car, I don't really want coolant dripping in my face. So once I'm done everything under the car, I just come up, pop those 2 off. They'll probably dribble a bit, and she's ready to pluck. So I'll get some straps and we'll get this thing up. Engine hoist is set up. I removed the 2 coolant hoses. All the mounts are off, so the motor is just hanging there by the straps right now. And if you watched my 9th gen SI rebuild, you'll see that I used the same frame rack chains as engine remover chains. So, yeah, nothing left to say, but she's ready to pluck, so let's pluckage, do some plucking. She's out, and as you can see, that's the coolant from those heater hoses I was talking about. I've learned a thing or two in my day, but there she is. It's actually a super clean motor. It's really dry, no major oil leaks or anything like that. It's actually none that I can see. This side is covered in coolant from the hoses, but yeah, no leaks on the timing side. Oil pan seems dry. Normal oil cake there from changing the filter. But yeah, and I did verify the VIN numbers. They're both 108, which is matching the car, so they're original to the car and they're original to themselves. So that's that, I guess. Anyways, I think I'm gonna call this an episode. I don't know how long this video is getting, so the next thing is going to be start prepping this chassis for the new motor. Like steering rack swap and just miscellaneous things like that. We also want to have a look at the clutch fork on this motor and transmission because it's kind of floppy. I don't know if it needs a new pivot ball and arm. Not too sure, but we'll look into that. And yeah, just miscellaneous things, getting it ready to drop in so that we'll have a good, reliable car when we go to use it. Anyways, with that, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys are looking forward to the project, and catch you in the next one.